I'm
No,
sure.
I'm not too old.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's show. Our return guest is Bill Wang, who is a law student at Penn Carey Law School. He's actually from North Carolina, so that's why it's kind of unusual that I actually get to have the guest in the same room with me because he's done with his first year of law school. So, welcome, Bill. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Judy. I'm really glad to be a friend of the show and a frequent guest. I think a lot of your viewers get basically, at this point, are getting a semester by semester update of my law school experience. It's fun for me too to kind of just share my experience and kind of give a wind down after every semester.
Yeah. So, do you want to give a little bit of background about yourself first?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born in China, and I basically grew up. I lived basically all my life here in North Carolina. I grew up in Chapel Hill, went to high school there, went to UNC Chapel Hill. While I was at UNC, I actually was able to spend a lot of my time overseas. I did about half my undergrad at the National University of Singapore. So I had a really, I think, a very unique college experience. After college, I mostly worked for a bit. I worked in finance. I mostly worked at Wells Fargo in Charlotte, and after working for a couple of years, I decided I want to go back to school, and that's what brought me to Penn Carey Law. I did the whole application process, and I just finished up my first year, my 1L year at Penn Law, Penn Carey Law, as they
Yeah,
say.
great. So, what did you major in?
I majored in economics, so I also finished. I minored in mathematics. I finished a math major as well, but I primarily majored in economics at UNC and NUS.
Mhm.
So and I felt like that prepared me pretty well for law school. I think there's a lot of intersection between economics and law. So I think it's been really useful. And actually, honestly, I think some of the courses that prepared me the most for legal writing and legal analysis were actually math courses. So.
Mhm. Okay, great. So, do you feel like you were at an advantage as someone who had actually worked a little bit before you went to law school?
I think so. I don't think I was at an advantage substantively in terms of what I knew and dealing with the academics, but I think I was just at an advantage from being able to kind of put everything in perspective. I think having worked before, law school, it's definitely difficult and it's rigorous, but it's a different kind of rigorous. I think for people who've worked, especially in an office setting, you're kind of used to being micromanaged. You're used to, having a lot of like little things to do that are kind of not that interesting. And like when you go to law school, obviously it's a lot of work, but you have a lot of independence. You can do things in your own time. You really just have one exam at the end of it. And that's honestly a great relief. I think it's a lot easier to do than working when you kind of have like five things to do at any given time.
Thanks for showing up to watch our live stream. Is Edward Wong a
That's
relative
my
of yours?
brother. That's my younger brother.
I was like, I know
Yeah,
at least three people with that
yeah,
name.
that's my
So,
brother. Hey, Eddie, how you doing?
okay,
Hey, go do your
great.
homework.
Yeah,
Yeah.
happy Mother's Day to the mothers out there. Hope you
Oh yeah.
guys had a great day celebrating your mothers. Yeah, I forgot it's Mother's Day. So, did you do something?
Well, my
Okay.
mom went. She's in China right now.
Oh,
She's on a trip. That's why I'm at home babysitting my brother. So,
oh, okay.
yeah.
Well, he's not much of a baby, right? So, okay, so that's why you're able to
Yeah,
escape and
yeah.
come out
Uh-huh.
here. So, okay, yeah. So, getting back to law school, what kind of classes did you take the second semester?
So I think generally speaking, every law school in America has what are called like the doctrinal courses, the classic course that everyone has to take. And my doctrinal courses for the second semester were constitutional law and criminal law, and I think that's going to be what basically every law student in America has to take. Penn is actually pretty unique in that we get a wide offering of electives are already in our second semester. For most law schools, I think you don't really get to do a lot of electives until your 2L year. So the electives I took were law and economics. As an econ major, I felt like I wanted to see how I could use my previous background in law. So I took law and economics and I took bankruptcy. I took bankruptcy because I thought it was a pretty substantive area of law that I could potentially practice in the future. And I wanted to kind of really have a tangible class that, like, once I go into interviews and once I start interviewing with firms, that I could talk about and kind of tangibly discuss maybe some areas that I could practice in.
Mhm. Okay. And so you still haven't gotten your grades yet, right?
I got one grade or two
Okay.
grades. Well, yeah, because also the other course we have to take, I forgot to mention this, but this is a 2 semester long course at almost every law school. There's a legal writing and research course, LPS, as we say it in Penn. I think some different schools call it different things. Some say like LARW, I've heard, generally legal writing. So I have my grade for law and economics and legal writing. But at Penn, it's legal writing is a pass fail. It's pass fail honors. So it's not like an AB letter grade like most classes are.
Yeah. Well, were you surprised by your law school grades, or
I mean they're
go?
fine. Like, I mean
Okay.
they're not. I'm not the top of my class, but I think I'm pretty happy with how they turned out. I think a lot of my experience is going to be pretty unique to Penn, and that our grading system is very friendly. Basically, the lowest non-discretionary grade, or the lowest grade that I think most students could get without completely bombing a test and like writing nothing on it, is a B. B is the lowest grade that the professor has to give, and there's and the median is a B minus. And I think it's like top 30% get A minus, and then like there's like 40% that gets B plus, and the bottom 30% gets a B. So like, when people at Penn say, "Oh, I got a bad grade," they got a B. It's fine.
Oh,
yeah,
well, I mean, B doesn't sound that bad.
it's fine.
Yeah. Whereas I think at a lot of law schools, they actually do go down to D's or F's.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're really kind of lucky already to be at a school where you don't have to worry about getting a C or
Yeah,
D.
I've had
Yeah.
friends at different law schools who said like, "Oh, our school curves down to a C plus or a C or something like that." And I can imagine how stressful that would be. Penn is very. There's other I think like Harvard and Yale, and Stanford, they just basically
Yeah.
give pass fail, high
Honors.
pass for everything.
Yeah.
But I think like having an A/B system where there's effectively 4 grades we can get is not that much more stressful than a strict pass fail. And I think for me, I once again I took math. I took a lot of math in undergrad, so I'm used to getting like a test back that's like a 40% or something like that. And then it
Terrible.
turning out to be like a B or a B plus. So the transition to law school grades was a lot easier transition for me than I think a lot of my classmates who like, I mean, the median GPA for an incoming 1L at Penn is like a 3.9. So like these people have never seen anything less than like an A in their life,
or B plus
or B plus. Like
minus.
I think these people a lot of my classmates get B plus and freak out. I'm like, oh, it's fine.
Yeah.
I'll survive.
Yeah. So. Well, I definitely remember at Georgetown, some people freaking out because they actually got a C or C plus or something. They're like, my life is over. So, speaking of grades and everything, what was the experience like getting ready for summer jobs?
Yeah, it was a lot. I think 1L summer. So usually for those of you who are unfamiliar, the way that law school works, generally for people trying to go to a private practice, going to a big law firm or just maybe mid-sized law firm, the biggest internship is your 2L summer. It's there's the process to get that internship on campus is called OCI, or on campus interview. And we're starting next month. So starting next month, I'm going to be like preparing and ranking and sending resumes in for my 2L internship, even though I basically just started my 1L internship. The 1L internship process is a lot lower stakes. My professors have basically told me, and the career office has basically told me as well, that as long as you're getting substantive legal experience, that's good. That's fine. Obviously, it's nice to be at a big firm that pays a lot. But I think for purposes of your resume, as long as you're getting or internship experience that you can talk about in an interview, like that's great. So I'm interning at a PLA, or Philadelphia Legal Assistance, which I'm really excited about. I'm doing unemployment assistance, and to get this internship, I had to apply a lot for interviews starting winter break, and a lot of my classmates did even before winter break. With the 1L internship process, it's really a crapshoot. You need to put out as many applications as you possibly can, I think, in order to because you never really know what you're going to get. And for students who've just finished 1 year of law school, we don't really know that much. So we're basically being hired off like our potential, or or
how
you
they
know,
like
yeah,
you,
or how they like us.
personality.
Exactly. So I think the advice that I got and what I did is I probably applied to maybe 30 or 40. The reason I chose Philadelphia Legal Assistance PLA, I thought their director came to speak to our contracts class, and she was fantastic, and the work that they did was great. They actually had a couple cases before the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which I thought was awesome. So those are some things that attracted me to it. I got some other offers that were pretty interviews and offers that were pretty cool, but I ultimately settled on PLA. So.
Okay, well, that's great to hear. So was it kind of a relief to get that decided?
Oh, for sure. I definitely I settled down on an internship pretty early. My goal was I wanted to accept an internship early so I could focus the rest of the semester on exams and writing and not, looking for a job.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, were you scared to death in the first year?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my God. It's
Really?
ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Okay.
I honestly I think this is the minority opinion
Mhm.
for me, that I had a great time. I thought one out was a lot of fun. At the end, in hindsight, I thought it was a lot of fun. I made a lot of friends. Because like really, at the end of the day, all you're doing in law school is you're reading a bunch of stories. You're just reading a bunch of the stories these old guys wrote.
Yeah,
and,
old cases.
Yeah,
old
and then sometimes a professor will grill you on these, and like worst comes to worst, you look stupid. Like I've looked stupid before. It's not the worst thing in the world. But I think they definitely do try to scare you a ton. Especially the first month. And I think that's probably the biggest adjustment. Like once you start rolling with it, once you get a routine down, I think it becomes much easier. Don't for all the viewers out there, don't let them scare you. You'll figure it out. It'll be great.
Yeah. Well, did any of the professors put you on the spot and, do the stereotypical, grilling you using the Socratic method?
Oh yeah. But like for
Yeah.
me, my strategy for these, like I read the cases. I feel like, for the professors when they're cold calling you, what we call it cold calling, when the professors will call on you in class and they use a Socratic method and just try to get to the bottom of your opinion and see if you really understand the doctrine. Most of the time, they want to have a good conversation. They want to engage with the student, and I like talking. I've been called on in class before, and I'm pretty willing to like argue my opinion. And I think as long as you have that mentality of like they're not necessarily looking for a great answer. They're looking for a great conversation. And as long as you can kind of apply what you know from the case and just roll with the punches and roll with like the method, I think most of the time it's great.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Shaquille Oatmeal, great name. Yeah. So thanks for all your comments. Are you in law school? I can't remember. Okay, so this person says, I'm super competitive and used to being a top dog. I think that's the case for a lot of people at law school. I wouldn't like the competitive nature where pretty much everyone is smart and accomplished, nothing really special. My ego would be shot. Did you feel like your ego was shot in law school?
Maybe a little bit. I think so. Once again, I think I don't know if I want to call it the luxury, but I had the experience of having a pretty rigorous undergrad. I think I didn't expect to go in and say like, oh, I'm going to be like the best guy but I had the opposite experience. I think that most people that I found, that most of my classmates are very, very intelligent, of course, but more so than being intelligent, they're really helpful. I think most of the time we would get together, we do exams, we talk about cases, we talk in between class. And I never really felt a huge sense of competition. Maybe first semester before first set of exams, people are starting to gear up a little. You kind of feel a little bit of tension in the air. But personally, I felt that the environment, at least at Penn, was a lot more cooperative than it was competitive. I think, once again, I don't know how generalizable my experience is. I think a lot of different schools are going to have, different environments and different cultures. But I felt my experience, everyone was pretty cooperative. I felt like I could, turn to my classmates for almost anything.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's great to hear. I guess it also helps that you're at a school where maybe the lowest grade would be a B, and pretty much everybody expects to get decent or good jobs after graduation, so it's not as cutthroat and anxiety ridden.
I agree. I think that I think being at Penn, where most people have the expectation of like, okay, even if I get, even if I'm the bottom of the class, I'll probably get a decent job. I think that definitely changes the calculus a lot. I would imagine that schools where the curve is a bit harsher or the job prospects are a little worse to be different culturally. So once again, I don't know how generalizable my experience is going to be.
Yeah. Well, what about dropping out of law school? Like, do you know people who have already dropped out?
One person did.
Okay.
I think one person in our class. I think they just realized it wasn't for them. I never knew this guy personally, but I was told that there was this one guy, like first week or two, he was in class. He didn't really, pay much attention, and then he said, it's not for me," and he got his money back. So Penn they gave him a refund. So no harm.
That's kind of strange. Like after spending all that time applying and jumping through the hoops, taking LSAT and getting into UPenn.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like that's the, if you are to drop out of law school, I think that's the time. If you first week, you still your tuition's still refundable. You haven't really done exams. You haven't done much. Get out if you want to get out while it's early.
Yeah, don't drop out after 2 years of all that and student loans or whatever.
Yeah, now would be bad time. If I were to drop out now, bad decision. Financially, personally, very bad decision. But I think 1 week, especially like, I don't know. I think like I was told he was like a engineering or STEM major, had other, could do other things.
Oh yeah.
So I think for that guy, probably not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully he's doing okay, and he's probably not regretting his decision. Yeah. Okay. Welcome C99. Going to Dickinson in the fall. Do you know anything about that school?
It's Penn State's law school. Am I right? Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So I've heard good things about it. I think I think there was something strange going on with Penn State where they had two law schools. There was Penn State and then Penn State Dickinson. And then they merged. I don't know if they merged them or they made the campus in I assume. I don't know, C99, if you could answer it. I don't know if the current state of affairs with Penn State's law school. Are they moving it to Dickinson? Okay, now they're one. Okay.
Yes, they are.
I see.
Okay,
I see.
Well, best wishes to you also.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah, State College and Dickinson. I don't know where the law school is. They merged. Okay, is it in Dickinson or is it in State College? Still two campuses. Okay. Well, they're both very fun. They're both very. I actually my dad did a doctorate at Penn State, so I actually lived in Penn State for a brief period of time when I was very young. From what I can remember, great town, very cute, very similar to Chapel Hill, I think, like classic college town vibes. So I hope you have fun. They drink a lot there, so be careful with that. Don't drink too much.
Well, you did mention that there are like drinking activities also, right? Like beer on the quad or keg on the quad type things, or bar review.
Bar review is a big thing. We had beer on the quad, but that was mostly for like events. Penn has a pretty nice courtyard, so we. There's a lot of events there. They'll have a lot of beer and wine. You got to be careful. I think not just academically, but just physically. If you drink too much, it's not good for you. I'm proud to say that I've stayed in pretty good shape during 1L year, which is something I didn't really expect.
That's because you were still part of some sort of kickboxing.
Yeah, I was still boxing. Penn, once again, great boxing club. Shout out to 10 Hands Fight Club. Shout out to Coach Harey as well. Yeah, but I think Penn also has a really well-organized bar review. Our student government organizes a weekly bar, we call it bar review. So we don't go out and study the bar. We go to a bar. And they have like an email list. They have a website for bar reviews. So every week you can plan ahead. You know where it's going to be. There's drink specials. I would recommend I didn't go that much. I think I went once in the beginning of my 1L year, but I had classmates who would go like every week. I think there's a happy medium there. There's probably, an appropriate amount of time for you. I'm also a little bit older. I think my classmates coming out of undergrad, they're more used to going out on Thursdays. For me, I had to tone it back a little bit. So I think that's a big thing. Just watch your health while you're in law school. C99 saying I'm in the Harrisburg campus, small town campus, not much partying. Oh, okay. Well, that's probably good for your grades.
Yeah,
that's probably good for your grades.
Yeah, you're there at law school to study the law and get a good job. So I was telling Bill that one of my regrets about my law school experience was that I felt so distracted by all the socializing, the fun around DC. getting married my third year of law school, that was a huge distraction. Oh, okay. Oh, well, that's good to hear. So you're an slightly older student, left the military, not much of a drinker. Okay, great. Well, yeah, I think it definitely does help if you're a little bit older. When you go to law school, you'll take it a lot more seriously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think especially, for one, thank you for your service. And I think people coming from the military, especially, I've noticed, um, I think the mentality definitely carries over. I think if you're used to just doing kind of following orders, if you're used to, doing activities that maybe seem a bit mundane, I think whether it's from work or from the military, I think a lot of the activities in law school definitely can feel that way. A lot of the day to day can feel like somewhat of a grind, and definitely being able to embrace that is very, very helpful. Where I think a lot of students coming from undergrad don't necessarily have that, aren't used to doing that as much, let's say, and I think that's a learned skill from a lot of students coming from undergrad.
Mhm. Okay. Well, Michael, thank you for being here. He has kind of a different question. I don't know anything about this case, unfortunately. Yeah, so somebody named Michael Wang sued Harvard. He only got into a law school ranked 133. Is he wasting his time if he paid full price for law school? Well, it could be. I mean, what? Yeah. I mean, I find it strange. Like, it always depends, because sometimes people go to some low ranked state school, but then they still get a good job at some sort of regional law firm. It depends. If you have connections and you're from the area, if you plan on practicing in the same city where your law school is, then you might have a better chance, even if you don't get into Harvard or some really top law school. So you have any opinion?
Yeah, I mean, we had to read the I don't know if it's the same case, but we had to read the brief, the petitioner's brief for the Students for Fair Admissions case suing Harvard and UNC, actually. So I'm not sure if the guy in there was, I don't know the specifics of Michael. Actually, I know a guy named Michael Wong, but I think he's it's probably a different Michael Wong.
Yeah.
Is he wasting his time if he paid full price for law school? I think the decision to go to law school, I think, is very complicated. And I think only looking at ranking is a bit reductive. But I think it's like the general prestige, the general like portability of that degree is probably, it should be a factor. I think rankings aren't perfect, but I think, you kind of have to do your own research and look into like, what are the job prospects from the school? What areas of the country can I work in if I went to the school? I think, really when people talk about like the top law schools, like for example, they say that the T14 classic top law schools, a big advantage of them is not only big law, and not only federal clerkships, but also like kind of the portability of the degree. Like for me, I'd probably have to do some extra work if I wanted to work in Texas, or like California, but I know it's, probably available. But I think if you were to go to a lower ranked school, it would definitely be more difficult to work outside of that geographical area. So these, I think, are all things that you have to think about before going to law school. I wouldn't call it a complete waste of money or waste of time, but I think I would tell this hypothetical person, to kind of do your research and think long and hard.
Yeah, because for some people, going to law school did turn out to be a waste of time and money. You don't want that person to be you. And speaking of that, did you say you had to take out loans to go to law school?
Yes, yeah. I think like most students, I had to take out a decent bit of loans. So
did they give you any financial aid?
I wasn't fortunate to get any from Penn, but I was able to get some from other schools. I thought that being at Penn, although I had to pay a much higher price than some other schools, that I thought the degree was definitely more valuable. I think, once again, geographically, that geographic portability and especially closeness to the markets, the proximity to New York, especially, made it really attractive. I think compared to maybe some other lower ranked schools that would have been cheaper or even free. I thought that, in the long run, I thought that going to Penn would definitely pay off financially. But we'll see how it goes. I don't know. Maybe I'll be broke in 20 years.
Oh, well, I don't know. Somehow I don't think you're going to be broke, but okay. Okay. So thank you for this information. Yeah, it's kind of irrelevant to my life now since I'm a practicing attorney and I graduated from law school 23 years ago. So that's why I haven't been keeping up on these
It's a really interesting
lawsuits.
case. Yeah, I read the once again we read the petitioner's brief for a class. It's a very interesting case. But I think from on a personal level, I'm in law school. Affirmative action doesn't affect me that much anymore. But I think for those of you who are interested in just casual Supreme Court watchers, I would definitely recommend reading the briefs for the Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard and UNC. I think a lot of the stats behind it are very fascinating. So.
Yeah. Do you mind me mentioning about you and UNC Law School?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay. So this is how random law school admissions can be. So Bill told me that he applied to UNC Law School as an in-stater and got rejected. So go
waitlisted
figure.
and then rejected.
Oh, I'm sorry. You got waitlisted.
Rejected eventually.
Okay.
Rejected eventually.
Yeah. So that is so weird because UNC Law School is ranked a lot lower than UPenn, but he got into UPenn. So congratulations. I think ultimately it all worked out in the end. So yeah. And my younger sister also went through law school admissions probably like 15 years ago, I would say. Yeah, 10 to 15 years ago. And there were some schools that she got rejected from and some schools that she got into, so it didn't really correlate with the ranking of the law schools. So you just never know what the admissions committee is looking for.
It's very random. When I was applying to law schools, I had a lot of outcomes. I was like, oh, wow. And other ones, I was just like, what? How did that happen? It's very, very random. I think a lot of them are looking for yield is a big thing, or yield is the percentage of students that will actually go to the school. I was, when I tell people I got waitlisted and from UNC, people will tell me, oh, that had to be what's called a yield protect, right? Like, they knew you were going to go, which is kind of, maybe I would have gone, I think my family's close by. It's a good deal. You never know. But just for all the applicants out there, you definitely have to, for most people, I would say cast a wide net for sure. No matter how good your grades or your LSAT is, I think it's applying to law school for the vast majority of people is kind of like a crapshoot. Just like applying to jobs. So,
yeah. And if you look on YouTube, there's actually this young woman who talks about how she got into Berkeley Law School and she had a 152 LSAT. So that's really surprising.
She probably had a lot going on for her, maybe great grades, great extracurriculars.
Maybe she came from a poor, disadvantaged family, first one to go to law school, got straight A's in undergrad, worked her way through college. Who knows? Yeah. So I think I got waitlisted or rejected at UCLA, and then I got into Georgetown and I got rejected by Yale, but that wasn't a surprise. But I do sometimes wonder, like, gosh, my legal career would have been so different if I had gotten into Yale, where they don't give letter grades as pass fail honors. Yeah.
Oh, you turned out fine.
Everything's okay. It's all under the bridge. It's been so many years. So anyway, so hopefully once you get your career going, you will nobody would be worried like, oh, why did they reject me or why did I get waitlisted?
I'm not worried now. Just for the record, I'm not worried now.
It's fine. You're in better school. Yeah. So let's see. Okay, so Shaquille is saying having the pressure of paying back law school loans keeps a lot of people from pursuing what they would really like to do and go into areas that pay more. Yeah, that's true. Like some people who feel trapped into doing public interest government work to get their loans paid off. So that can be kind of stressful if you get fired, which happened to someone I know, got fired from that person's job and then had to quickly scramble to find something else that was in public interest or government.
Yeah, I've heard it the other way around too. I think for a lot of students, a lot of my classmates, it's relatively rare, I would say, at least once again, among people I know. I don't know how generalizable my experience is at Penn, that a lot of people, it's relatively rare, I would say, that people want to go into big law and then stay for the entirety of their career. It's a pretty grueling lifestyle. It's obviously you get paid a lot, but it's a lot of work. So most of my classmates I've talked to have said, oh yeah, I plan on doing big law for, just enough time to pay off my debt. And then I want to go into public interest, or I want to go into government, or I want to go in-house or something like that. But I think that the pressure of student loans definitely, on the other hand, probably drives a lot of students to start in big law, and maybe even stay for much longer than they anticipated. Because I think what they call like lifestyle creep.
Mhm.
I've heard a lot of people, who get that first big paycheck and start buying designer bags or designer shoes.
Yeah.
After a couple years, they'll buy a condo, and before you know it, they're stayed in they've stayed in a lot longer than they wanted to, and probably didn't go in, aren't doing what they went into law school to do. But on the other hand, I won't shed a tear for them. They're fine. Like
Okay.
they'll be okay.
As long as they don't get laid off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So, but you've been going to New York City a lot, right? So you know people who work
Right.
for big law firms in New York. So what's their lives like?
Yeah, I think so. My significant other, my partner, works in New York, and a lot of her friends also are in big law. A lot of my friends as well, just from Penn, people I know are in big law. I mean, it's busy. I think big law is definitely it's a lot of work. It's a lot of billable hours, but at the same time, I think it's a great experience for most people. I think it's very difficult otherwise to kind of get substantive experience working on big cases. Even going to networking events with like first or second year associates at big law firms, they'll say like, "Oh, I'm working on the FTX bankruptcy," or "I'm working on this other," like these are cases that people are reading about in the news, in the Wall Street Journal, and New York Times. And I think it's a really great experience because there's very little that a young lawyer could do by themselves, or maybe working in a smaller firm, that could get them that kind of experience, in those high profile cases they could talk about. So I definitely, there's good and there's bad for sure.
Mhm. Yeah. So, getting back to law school, then you mentioned that you have recently gone through the whole law review write-on process. Yeah. So, law review is basically a publication that is student-run with faculty advisors, and pretty much all of the law schools, except maybe the most bottom tier law schools, have law review, and it's considered very prestigious to get on the main law review staff. But most law schools, especially the top ones, have multiple different types of law journals, law review staffs that you can get on. So this is a tryout process that happens right after your final exams are over, right? Okay, tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you who are not in the know for law school, this is going to sound ridiculous, but the way that the tryout process works for law review, which is academic publication, you're tested on your ability to correct citations. And the way that this works for us, it was 2 days of about 2.5, 3 hour testing. So about like 5 or 6 hours total of correcting citations that determines your place on an academic publication. It's not the most interesting thing in the world, as you might imagine.
It was very boring, and to me, I felt like I learned absolutely nothing.
Oh man, I spent the weekend. There's something called the Blue Book, and I spent my weekend reading the Blue Book and trying to like learn all these citations, because I wasn't great at them during the school year, and I'm probably still not great at them now. But at Penn, ours was I don't want to badmouth the administration, but our system crashed the first day. Our exam system crashed. I thought they were going to burn down the law school. Oh my God. The group chat for my class was trying to incite a riot almost.
Like, let us all be on law review.
Yeah, they're like, we all need to boycott day one of law review, because initially the system crashed and it was supposed to be a time test. But they extended it and said, all right, you have until midnight to do it. And law students are very neurotic people, right? So even if you say this test is supposed to take 3 hours, but you have until midnight, which is like, from that point, it's like 10 or 12 hours. Guess how long they're going to take? 12 hours, right? We're going to take all the time that we have. So people are complaining, I booked flights. I planned my day around this, and I thought it was going to be over. And now they're extending it, and they're throwing a whole wrench into the thing. And granted, I think those are all very valid. But at the end of the day, I think, you kind of have to just suck it up. There's not much else we can do.
Yeah.
Hopefully they fix the system for the next day, and hopefully we'll for years moving forward they'll change this. So we had that 2-day that citation test. There's a personal statement element, and there's an essay element, which I'm still doing now. I'm gonna go home and work on it some more. And that's kind of how your place is determined. But Penn is, once again, we're really fortunate to have a lot of great journals. So I'd be happy to really do any of them. So and this is honestly, it's boring, I say, and like I'd much rather be like at the beach or chilling at home. But I think in the long run, it might be helpful, just at least to help me get a better grasp on citations and all that.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm sure you'll get on one of them because didn't you say your school has 8 different
It's
law
about it. Yeah,
journals?
I think eight's
Yeah.
it is. I want to say 8. Off the top of my head, I think so. But I'm not sure exact number. But yeah, it's a lot. It's enough that I think most people who want to do a law review, want to do some sort of journal, not necessarily law review, will be able to do some sort of journal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, it's something that you pretty much have to do if you want to be considered for the top jobs. A lot of the bigger employers are expecting you to be on some sort of law journal. And if you didn't even get on any of them, then it kind of looks bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for the slightly like lower ranked schools, it might not be as big of a deal.
Yeah, especially for litigation. I think what I was told is for transactional work. So usually there's people either go into litigation, which is your classic like what Judy does, your classic like courtroom lawyering, and transactional work, which is more like looking over contracts, writing them, due diligence they call it. I've been told that law review and journal is much more important for litigation than transactional work, but I think it's good for both. It's definitely helpful for both.
Yeah. Well, also, if you intend to interview for clerkships with
yeah,
federal
sure.
judges, U.S. Supreme Court, any sort of judge, they want to see if you are on a law journal, preferably the main one.
Yeah,
because
sure.
it shows that you can do lots of legal research and writing. You can write correctly. You know how to punctuate, grammar.
Right. Yeah, I know where to put my italics and my
yeah,
underlines.
Yeah, where the quotation mark
Yeah.
goes, how to cite to certain, legal journals and stuff. Okay. Well, these are some great questions. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. What did you find surprising in law school that you didn't realize before attending? Do you need some time to think about that?
Yeah, what do I find? Honestly, I didn't expect this as much. Just because law school, it's a professional school. We're adults there. I didn't expect the environment of law school to be basically middle school part 2. It's very, very middle school, high schooly. It can get very cliquey. People will like get really complain about really small things. They section us, they break us off into sections, which they also did in my middle school. Once again, I love my classmates. I think they're all great. But just on a high level, I think the best preparation for law school for me was probably my middle school.
Yeah, navigating all these little cliques and people gossiping about each other.
For sure,
because
sure.
It's like much smaller than college. Right?
Absolutely. It's my law school class is smaller than my high school class. So it's about my class in law school is about 250 people. My high school is like, I want to say 400, something like that. But yeah, I thought I was a little bit over with it, because especially when you're at work, of course there's work politics, but I think for most people, you do your job and you go home, right? But I think in law school, it's a little bit different, where it's kind of, it kind of becomes your entire life in a way. And I definitely recommend that if you can find outlets, that if you can find like communities or groups of friends outside of the law school, to definitely do that. It's important to go, as we like to say, touch grass, please, by all means. Just touch grass, find some outlets. Not to say don't hang out with your classmates. Obviously you should. And I think, you'll make great friends, but find something to do that kind of keeps you occupied outside of law school. And I think that'll be really helpful.
Yeah. So that's why it was good that you did the boxing club, because it wasn't just law students.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Much big shout out to boxing, improved my mental health a ton, and my physical health, of course.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's always good to see that you didn't like gain 50 pounds in law school. Because like so much of law school, I was surprised. There's so much reading, and you're just like sitting there like a blob for hours on end. Yeah, sometimes I would just stand up at a table to read because I was so tired of sitting.
Yeah, I had a classmate who had a treadmill. She would read while on her treadmill, which is great. I think if you can do that, do that. Everyone stay in shape. Stay in shape is a great. That's my advice for all law students. Find something to stay in shape.
Yeah, very good for your mental health too. Okay. Oh, okay. This is a good comment. There's a girl on YouTube named Cece. I know that channel because I'm subscribed to her. It's Cece Xie, XIE, who got a full ride to NYU and Columbia, got into Harvard and Yale, attended Harvard at full retail. She quit law with over $250,000 in debt. Yeah, so I've seen a bunch of her videos in the past, and I personally feel like it was kind of a dumb mistake to pass up a full ride to Columbia to go to Harvard. I mean, if that were my kid or my relative, I would have told her, what the hell are you thinking? Because Columbia is ranked almost as high as Harvard. And they have, I mean, you have the same opportunities to go to big law. You're right there in New York City. So why would you turn a full ride there to take on over $300K in debt to go to Harvard? And look what happened. She burned out. She didn't like it at her big law firm and quit after about 5.5 or 6 years. Yeah.
I think NYU now is ranked the same as Harvard, actually.
Oh, it is?
The new rankings
NYU?
The new
Really?
rankings has dropped. Harvard
Oh.
has dropped a lot in the new rankings. Penn is ranked higher than Harvard now.
Yeah,
So fun
really?
new rankings,
Okay.
yes. So
Well, I guess I have this old school mindset then.
no,
Sorry.
I can see. I think the appeal of Harvard and Yale over some of the peer schools is that it's much easier to go to those really elite level outcomes from Harvard and Yale. Like, we're talking about Supreme Court clerkships or like Skadden fellowships, or maybe if you want to like go into politics in the future, Harvard and Yale are definitely unmatched in that regard. And especially if you're independently wealthy, I can see someone doing that. I've seen, I like Cece's videos. I think she's like out there, she's like writing books now and like doing influencer stuff. So good for her, out there living her best life. I mean, I think not everyone goes into law school to do big law. I think a lot of people have different, long-term goals. So I don't know. Like, once again, I think I didn't get a full ride to Columbia or NYU, but I'm maybe doing the same thing that she is in a sense. But once again, we'll see how it turns out. Who knows? And I think actually a lot of my classmates, it's very surprising. Oh, another thing that surprised me about law school. A lot of them like don't want to practice law in the long term. So I'm like, all right, well, I don't know why you're here, but
Yeah, maybe
figure it
they
out.
see it as a springboard to do politics or something.
Yeah.
But again, it depends. Like if you come from a filthy rich family, then you
Yeah.
have more options to just say goodbye to big law after a
Yeah,
while.
for sure. That's also actually something else that surprised me. A lot of just the wealth of some of
Mhm.
my classmates, like the high schools that they went to. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, like your high school costs more than law school. Okay,
Mhm.
I can see why it's not a big deal financially. So
Yeah, that was the way at Georgetown too, because every year they would have this big public interest auction where they would be auctioning off like sports tickets or tickets to plays and stuff. And these students would be like bidding hundreds or even close to thousands of dollars to try to win these things. I'm like, really? Okay. I guess it was like chump change to them. So yeah, but yeah, good luck to Cece. I don't know how long the influencer thing is going to last, and
I don't know. Yeah,
everybody wants to be a writer, but maybe she can be one of the few that.
yeah.
makes
I
it.
hope she makes. I think her YouTube. She's doing a great job. Her YouTube shorts are really interesting.
TikTok.
Yeah, I don't have TikTok, but I see her on YouTube sometimes.
Yeah.
I think they're really interesting. So best of luck to her, and I'll check out her book once it gets published.
Yeah. Okay, what do you think about the current law school grad prospects versus people graduating from law school? Well, I don't know. Do you have any comments on that, since you seem to know a lot more people that just graduated from law school?
Yeah, I think I think for people at Penn and for people in similar tiers of schools, we are a little bit insulated from the economy, not completely, but I think there's probably, regardless of how the economy is, I think most of our 3L class is going to do like pretty well. I hope so, at least. But I think the economic downturn definitely is having a big effect on law firms. I mean, just reading the Bloomberg news that pops up on my phone, there's definitely a lot of layoffs going on right now in law firms, and definitely I think especially in like the West Coast markets, it seems like a lot of that tech boom that has really fueled the legal industry in the last couple of years is slowing down a little bit. But we'll see how it plays out. Hopefully, all these people end up being all right.
Yeah, and you have a friend who just graduated from UNC Law School
Mhm.
who has a job with the government.
Yeah, I think government's government. Government's always going to be there. I think these economic conditions are always going to have a much bigger effect, I think, on the private sector, on private practice, than it will on government. And especially, I think there's certain firms that tend to cater towards tech companies more, and I think they're definitely feeling the brunt of it in the last couple of the last year or so. So we'll see how the economy rebounds, and we'll see how it plays out. But I think it's definitely a concern, I think, for people in my class, at least.
Okay, thanks. Okay, do some law schools use grades only to assess who gets into law review, or a mix of grades and essay?
For us, it's really interesting. It's a third, basically, or not almost a third. It's a third, about 20 people, which is the top 10% of the class, will get on via their grades, but they still need to be confident at Blue Booking. They still need to be in the top half of Blue Book scores. About another 20 are going to get on via their essay and their Blue Booking skills, and another, I want to say 15, get on via their personal statement. So it's a very interesting mix, I would say. Penn is, I think, where our law review tries to make it pretty diverse in terms of how people get on. It's not only grades and it's not only your Blue Booking skills, but it's a good mix of all three.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Why does law school have so many dance events?
Yeah, that's a good one.
yeah. At my school, they had a barrister's ball.
We got one too. Yeah, we got one too.
Okay, so did you go?
I did. Yeah, it was. I think every law school has a barrister's ball. I think it's it's a lot of fun. People just it's like it's like a prom event or like a high school prom or college formal or something like that. Except there's a lot of alcohol involved. We had an open bar. I think certain law schools did not have an open bar, but it was really crowded. It is what if you went to like a frat party, in college, you went to like a frat formal, or if you went to prom. Imagine prom with alcohol. That's how barristers ball, I'd say. I think I think a lot of it's because the industry of law is so focused on like networking and socializing and all that. So they try to get a jump on that in law school, I'd imagine. And we also had a fight night. Our Penn fight night's a big thing. It's like the boxing club. Our basically the grad student boxing club will fight the Wharton boxing club, and afterwards we'll have like a concert and a dance. So that's a very unique thing for Penn.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We had Wyclef Jean come out from the Fugees. I don't know if anyone here is a fan.
Yeah.
I was a fan. So I think that's a Penn specific thing. No other law schools I've heard have had a fight night and a concert music festival after that.
That does sound pretty unusual, a fight night. Okay, interesting. Okay, how about karaoke battle?
We do that. I think we've had that too. That's I think I'm in the APALSA, the Asian Pacific American Law Student Association.
Yeah.
There's always a lot of karaoke events with APALSA.
Yeah.
So I've been having to work on my singing, especially I try to because there's a good mix of like Asian Americans and international students. So I try to also work on my Mandarin singing as well.
That's funny. So. Yeah, maybe they need to have some dance revolution competition.
I love it. Maybe I'll figure that out. I'll organize something next year. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't let that interfere with your grades. Yeah. Okay. Oh, this is a good question. Did you participate in study groups?
Yeah, I did. I think for me, you have to be a little bit careful with study groups. I did participate in study groups and I found them useful, especially during exam time. But for me, I always try to make my study groups like pretty goal oriented. So I would always, when I would do study groups, I would always try to organize like, all right, we're going to do an exam. For example, we're going to do an exam from 2018 or 2019. And then we're going to look at the sample answer and we're going to talk about how we did this exam differently and what points we hit, maybe what points we missed, what the sample answer could have done better. And for me, I thought this was really helpful for actually doing the exams. A lot of the preparation for law school, like we're talking outlining, reading notes, etc., is good. But I think at the end of the day, your knowledge doesn't matter unless you can spit it out on paper in a way that your professor likes, which is, based on what you can learn based on their sample exam. So I think having really goal-oriented study groups that, we could discuss how we could, really hit those points and how we could issue spot and what's kind of the thought process for writing and issue spotting was very helpful. I would be careful about just general study groups where you just show up and like chit chat about different topics. That's what I would say about study groups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ultimately you're the one taking the exam, so it's up to you, not the group. So, okay. Thank you, C99. How difficult is it to obtain a job in prosecution? What about lawyer jobs for international crime? Well, I don't know much about the second question because I don't know anyone that works in that field. But my friend Cyril Yu, the prosecutor in the Southern California area, has been a guest on multiple live shows. So he's going to be back again probably sometime in late June or July. So hopefully you can ask him some questions then. But I think, no job is easy to get these days. There are so many thousands and thousands of new law students graduating every year, so that even these government, criminal defense prosecutor type jobs are very competitive also to get. So I think it would really be helpful if you could actually intern for a DA's office as a law student to get some experience.
Yeah, I don't personally know about this. I would imagine that's hard to get a lawyer job for international crimes. I mean, that seems pretty niche.
That would probably be like a job with the Department of Justice, maybe, or with the CIA.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe there's like the court in The Hague, like the one in the Netherlands that does war crimes and all that. That seems competitive. If I had to guess, it seems like something a lot of people want to do.
Very few openings.
Yeah. Also, I'd imagine like you're also not only competing with American lawyers, but also lawyers all over the world who would want to do that. And so anyway, I don't know anything about this, but this is just complete conjecture. But hopefully it's somewhat reasonable.
Yeah, I think for district attorney jobs, they do hire a lot of people straight out of law school. I remember interviewing around New York and even Philadelphia, other cities for DA jobs. And the people there just seem like really cool, like they're not as stuffy as a lot of the big law firm corporate type attorneys. Of course, the starting pay isn't that great, but it is an excellent way to get trial skills and to be able to throw yourself in the courtroom very quickly from almost day one if you want to do that type of work. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think a lot of people working in DA's offices or a U.S. attorney's office. A friend of mine interning at a U.S. attorney's office this summer as well. It seems like you get a lot of hands-on. You get a lot of hands-on experience really early. So if you have that opportunity, that'd be fantastic.
Okay. Thank you for your compliment. So it's always nice to see people actually watching my channel. So, okay. What about commercial outlines?
I think for me, I didn't find them super helpful. I personally, this is a minority opinion as well. I didn't actually outline, which most people don't be like me. Well, maybe. I made a lot of flowcharts. I made a lot more flowcharts, and that was my way of outlining. Commercial outlines, I think, are good just to have as a reference sometimes. I would not rely on them. This is, and once again, take my experience, take my advice with a grain of salt. I think my general advice, I think, to law school, to law students is that everyone's advice is going to be so different. Everyone's experience is going to be so unique that you kind of have to figure out what works for you best. And for me, I never found using commercial outlines or even outlining in general super helpful. I always found that like my time was better spent doing practice exams. I found that flow charting was really helpful for me, but I think it's gonna be different for everyone. I had friends who outlined a lot, and it was great for them, and it was really helpful. But for me, just the way that I learn, I felt that having a more visual aid was better. And I think like at least at Penn, we were given like Barbary and these bar prep companies, they give out these books with commercial outlines. So you don't even have to pay for them. And I think I maybe opened it twice. So it wasn't super helpful.
Yeah. I mean, I liked having outlines like manuals, or I don't know what the companies are these days, but I thought it was helpful, but it's still more stuff you have to read in addition to your regular class assignments. So yeah, so I wouldn't 100% rely on those. Yeah. Oh, and I did want to mention, I have a lot of friends that work for DOJ in DC since, I used to live in DC and everything. And one of them, of course, she went to Yale Law School. She got into the DOJ honors program. Yeah. So that has been her entire career. She has exclusively worked for the Department of Justice. I don't want to give too many details about her, but yeah, I mean, those jobs are definitely competitive. They have an honors program that you can apply for, I think, your third year of law school. And it's always only the top people that, get considered for these really nice jobs that kind of ease you in to the Department of Justice employment, which most people seem to enjoy. You get great benefits. You get a lot of learning experience and mentoring. So lots of people turn that into their career if they can get such a job.
Yeah, I've heard great things about DOJ honors. I think it's we have a couple people I think from Penn every year who get DOJ honors. Yeah, I think it's definitely great for. I mean, it's definitely something I've thought about, something I've looked into, and probably something I'll consider somewhat down the line. Um, but I think it's definitely a terrific program. But I think the nice thing also about government work is that there's a lot of other folks who go in after working in private practice for a bit. I think the nice thing about having a law degree and something that attracted me to it is that the ability to kind of go between the private sector and the government and pick up experience from both sectors. So it's definitely something that'll be in my mind moving forward.
Okay. Yeah. Well, this question, I don't think we're going to answer because this is kind of off topic, and I am not a specialist or haven't really read up on that about giving reparations to people. So, yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
no
paper thin.
Yeah, we don't want to cause controversy
not
on
qualified.
this channel.
Not qualified.
Yeah. Okay, let's get back to law school. Okay, let's try to sum up since it's almost an hour. Do you have any great advice to people now that you have finished your first year?
Yeah, I think once again, as I said earlier, this might not be super satisfying, but you got to figure it out. I think you're going to get a ton of advice from people like me, people who maybe know what they're talking about, people who don't know what they're talking about. But I think it's a really personal journey. It's a very the way that you study and the things that work for you are going to be so different from what works for other people. So I say this to a lot of people, and the baseline advice I give for law school would be very similar to the advice I gave for someone who's doing a chemistry PhD. I don't know anything about doing a chemistry PhD, but if I had to guess, it would probably be go to class, do the readings, practice on the exams. And I think if you do that for law school, you'll probably be at least somewhat successful. I think you'd be surprised how many classmates I know or I've talked to who don't regularly read cases. Right. And I'd say, okay, that's something you should probably be doing.
At least do the reading.
Yes. At the very least, do the reading assignments. So I think, once again, it's a really individual journey. And I think it's part of the journey is really figuring out the study skills and the techniques that work best for you. So I think, don't worry too much. Touch grass, get exercise, stay in shape, practice a lot, make great friends. And I think, it'll end up being all right. And it'll end up having a good time, hopefully.
Yeah, and don't get too distracted by activities either.
Yeah, don't party too much. Don't drink too much.
Don't party too much. I mean, because there are some law students that get really into some of the student clubs, like student government, or being in charge of some, say, like ethnic organization or whatever. And I feel like that is a big distraction. You don't really want to do that, like student newspaper or whatever, because that's not as impressive on your resume as it is to do law review. So it's all about law review grades. Yeah. I mean, maybe have fun your third year.
Yeah. 2 out 3 year, I've been told, have more fun.
Yeah, you can definitely have more fun, say the last semester of law school. Yeah. Okay, one last question. How difficult is it to get a scholarship to do a master as an international law student? Well, I'm not qualified to answer that, but I'm assuming they usually don't give scholarships for that because that's like a money maker.
Is that an LLM? So you're talking about an LLM program, I assume?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, once again, I do know a lot of LLMs. I'm not familiar if they're on scholarship, or I think a lot of times I've met some LLMs who are paid by their home government.
Employer.
Yeah, their employer, their home government. They work for their government back home. I'm not sure about getting a scholarship from the law school in America, though.
Yeah, I would say that most likely they don't do it because a lot of law schools see the LLM program or masters in law programs as a cash cow. That's a way for them to get more tuition dollars from people who might not have been able to get a good job with a JD. Then they want to go back for another year of education.
Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Kim. Thanks for being here and asking a good question also. So, okay. So let's wind it up and say thank you again to Bill Wang for being willing to be on the show again and driving out here.
It's a quick drive. It's a short drive. I'm always happy to be. Thank you so much for having me, Judy.
Yeah.
I love being on the show, talking about my experiences. It's always a lot of fun. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and best of luck during your summer internship. It sounds like it's going to be real hands-on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good experience. Yeah, cool. Okay, so thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
See you on the next live stream show. Have a great day and happy Mother's Day again.
Happy Mother's Day.